Greetings, friends. My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach, and I want to welcome you to MagnifEssence in Motion. Today, this is episode number 25. It's called Ancestral Healing, Embodied Presence. Now, ancestral healing doesn't end when the tears dry or the ceremony closes. That's actually where the adventure begins. In this episode, I'm continuing a conversation, an exploration of lineage work with my friend and colleague, Elizabeth Kipp, a stress management and historical trauma specialist. You may recall we did an episode back in August called Reclaim Yourself with Ancestral Clearing, and you can find the link to that below here. But today we're going to be diving into what happens after the clearing. How do we integrate, embody, and authentically live from the liberated space that opens when we heal our ancestral wounds? So instead of staying focused on fixing the past, which some people tend to do, we move into a conversation about embodied creation, where presence, power, and purpose feel less like something we chase and more like something we naturally express in everyday life. So please say hello and a big hearty welcome to my good friend and my fellow colleague, Elizabeth Kipp. Oh, she's also a member of the Wellness Universe, by the way, as I am. So that's another big piece of information that you should know. And I just learned today she's located in the geographical center of the United States in Lawrence, Kansas. So welcome, Elizabeth. Thank you for being on the show again.
Well, thank you so much, David. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, we had a pretty interesting conversation about ancestral clearing. And for those who may have missed it, I would like to maybe start by having you explain well, first of all, how you came to be involved in ancestral clearing and why it's so important for us to learn about.
Okay, great. Love the question. I'll start really in my first experience of lineage awareness. When I was 4 years old, I was sitting in my living room and I was looking around and I could feel the energy. And I was like, what am I doing in this family? It was a little terrifying, but because I couldn't go anywhere, but here I was. Right. And I felt the weight. Now, immediately, as a 4-year-old, I really couldn't do anything but kind of ask that question and feel. I couldn't really speak that. And even if I could have, in my family, the mantra was, we don't talk about that. So nobody would have wanted to hear me even talk about it.
Right.
No. So, yeah. So really, my parents had just were of age. Like my dad was in the Second World War, and my mom lost her mother in the Second World War, and so they were affected by that. And they both had an experience of the Great Depression, and then their parents were involved in World War I and on back down the line. So I didn't understand any of that really at the age of 4, but children are aware of the energy. That's the important piece there. Right. So that was my first experience. The problem is that, like, I didn't have anywhere to go with that except experience it. So it was like this thing that I felt. And I remember asking my dad that same year, okay, I see that there's this religious thing happening over here. You know, we go to service and people sit and go to service, and then they go back into the parking lot, and then they go back to normal life. So they're all nice to one another in the church, and then they go out and they're like not. And I kind of said to him, where do these two worlds meet? Because they're different, right? And really kind of the spiritual, like the 3 and the 5D, pretty much, right? I didn't have those words, but he looked at me, he paused and looked at me and said, you asked too many questions. That was his answer. And nobody wanted to answer that question. And so I stopped asking the question, but out loud, but I never stopped having the question, right? And then in, I don't know, the early 90s, I think it was, I learned about quantum physics. And I was like, aha, that's where they meet, right? They meet there, right? And that was a huge relief for me. I felt like I could actually take a breath. Right?
Wow. So you've been holding your breath for all those years.
Right. Then the other thing was, I have a history of chronic pain, which that's a whole nother thing. We actually, I think, probably did an episode on that a few years back.
Right.
And
well, you wrote a book about it, didn't you?
Oh yeah. Well, I wrote a book about the way through chronic pain. I didn't really detail my story. It's more like this is what happens in a chronic pain experience.
I see.
And then these are the tools you can use to get out of it. And a little bit about my story, but it wasn't really. It was more about this is what it's like for a chronic pain patient to have an experience. So people who work with them actually understand the inside.
I see.
Because I've worked with thousands, I've sat with thousands and thousands of chronic pain sufferers, and then I had that 40-year experience myself. So a lot. You can't kind of sit in front of me with chronic pain and have a block and I can't see it. Like I kind of know what they are. It would be very unusual. So I had this long experience. I went into a pain management program, and it was a holistic pain management program in that he brought in, this Dr. Prescott brought in all these different healing modalities, one of which was ancestral clearing, which I'd never heard of. Now, understand, I was trained as a research scientist. So, you kind of, this is the way I kind of am. You kind of can't come to me with woo-woo unless it's got some grounding somewhere that I can like, that it can land somewhere. And now that we've got quantum physics, it could be Newtonian or quantum, but it's got to land in one of those worlds, for me to actually, otherwise it's going to go right over my head. I'm just not going to get it. Right? And that's just the nature of this beast. Right. So I had also learned prior to going into the Dr. Prescott's program, I had I'd seen a few studies about the power of prayer, which I found was very interesting because that was a science work, and there was kind of metadata, and that was amazing. And I was like, there's something going on here. Plus, I had my own lived experience, not science, right? My own lived experience of the power of prayer. Mm-hmm. So I had a little bit of grounding in that before I went into Peter's program. And anyway, so John Newton was a wellness practitioner in that program, and he brought in this healing modality, ancestral clearing, which is a prayer-based practice, really helping us release that which no longer serves us. And I never knew what was coming. He walked in the room. He handed everybody, there's 20 people in the room, patients in the room. He hands us all a piece of paper. It's in English. I knew about Sanskrit power words. I knew that. I didn't really know about English as power words other than the few studies I'd done about the power of prayer. This was a one page in the format of a prayer. And he asked everybody before he hands it out. He says, what's everybody's pain level? We're all chronic pain sufferers. And he said from 0 to 10, and the reports were 9 to 20. So everybody's like 9 to 20 levels of pain, right? In a scale of 1 to 10. Mine was at a 9, and out of 10, and then he said, I want you to read this prayer silently. He didn't even say the word prayer. He said, I want you to read this silently. We didn't read it out loud. And so I'm sitting there obeying instruction, and I'm but I've got my science hat on. Right? I'm like, what's happening here?
Right.
And I get halfway through the prayer, through the reading, and I felt the room shift. The energy in the room wasn't that we didn't have an earthquake. It was just like I felt that there was a change in the energy. And because I was detoxing off medication, I'm like, I'm detoxing. That was my mind. That's not real. I just kind of imagined that, like, I didn't validate that experience at all. I just said, I'm just crazy in this moment. Right. I get to the end, right. Yeah. I mean, I got crazy in my family. So when things go a little bit weird, I'm like, okay, is it my turn?
Right.
So I get to the bottom of the prayer and my pain starts to, and I'm like, okay, that's real.
Yeah.
And then John says, what's everybody's pain level? And the pain level was 0 to 9, from a 9 to 20. And
Right.
I was like,
so reduced by more than half, really.
What happened in this room? I know
Right.
something happened. Can we measure it? Can he repeat it? And does he teach it? Right? I mean, I went right into research mode within about 30 seconds of that experience.
Sure.
And I watched him play that, do that experience over and over again for the next like 40 days. And I had an experience, and I watched other people have experiences, and I was like, this is amazing. And I took the first training that I could out of that program, which was in May of 2014, and I've been in the work ever since. So yeah, and of course I learned a lot about what was happening here. Because
I'm going to ask you to pause here for a moment, because you've covered a lot of stuff, and the power of prayer is something very real, something that I definitely want to get back to. What I was hoping, though, that so far I haven't heard you really talk about how you got into ancestral healing and how important you feel that is. I'm sure there's a relationship here, but I haven't seen it yet in what you've been saying.
Sorry. So the prayer that we were reading was about kind of like a nutshell. I'll give you kind of the nutshell of what I was reading was: Creator, for me and my relationships and my ancestors and their relationships, all the hurts and wrongs done to us, any hurts and wrongs we did to others, any hurts and wrongs we did to ourselves, please help us all forgive and release one another, forgive and release ourselves, please, thank you. And it went on, we kind of detailed some other stuff, but it was about, that prayer was very specific, asking Creator to help us release ancestral burden.
Got it. Now I see it. Okay.
And I was like,
I guess I should have just waited.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. I'm so in the work, I kind of forget beginner's mind from time to time. So thank you for the question. Yeah. So that was and then the other thing that happened was, I was in I was in an event with John Newton, who does this work. He's my teacher. And that was a very interesting evening, because there were a lot of people that came into the room with a lot of heavy energy. And I felt it when they came in. We was kind of watching and noticing the burden, the people, you could just kind of feel it. It was kind of an unusual night, because I go a lot of John's events. And anyway, so, and in that space, the way those group things work is you've got to raise your hand if you want help. So as part of the process is you've got to ask for help, right? So he's working on some people, and then he stopped and he looked straight at me and he said, Elizabeth, what? And I didn't raise my hand. I'm like, what? And he had nailed that experience I had when I was 4, feeling that dark, dark shadow in my family that I had never talked about to anybody. But I kind of call him a medical intuitive, although he wouldn't say that. But I'm just saying, like he's got some skills. He's got some
Right.
serious skills, man. And I was like, and he kind of, and I mean, he just, did the work, and I was able to release that burden that I had carried those many, many years. So I was that was a very interesting night, because I wasn't, there were a bunch of people in the room that came in with that level of burden, and he just cleared the ancestral clearing process, just cleared the room out. It was pretty cool. So, but this is the power of prayer, because, and John would say, and I do too, as an ancestral clearing practitioner, I'm not like doing the healing here. I'm just really helping to guide the process. Creator's doing the work. Your willingness to release that which no longer serves you, that open-hearted peace, you ask at that level, you're going to get help.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a very, very important point. I mean, I hear people referring to themselves as healers, and I sometimes shake my head, because, I don't think of myself as a healer. I think of myself as a facilitator. And I think there's a difference. Right. My job is not, I don't know exactly what the details are for whatever might be going on for you. Only you know that truth. And so only you really know the true path to your own healing. But what I can do is I've helped enough people to do this now, that I can shine a light, and I can say, maybe here's a place you could look, or maybe you could look over here, or this or that. But what happens? What do you see when you look over here? What do you notice? What do you feel?
Right.
And I think, first of all, for a practitioner like me, it's really about building trust. I'm not here to judge you or anything like that. I'm here to just help you find your own path to healing. So I think that's a really important distinction for us to make.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that you mentioned, which you mention it a lot, is the word release. And that's a powerful word, because I don't think people really understand the importance of that word. Because really what we're doing, most of us, we're hanging on to stuff, hanging on for dear life. And we don't want to let go. We have some weird story that if I let go, then I'm going to lose myself, or some story like that. And so the idea of release is not about, it's not about losing yourself. It's not about releasing yourself. It's about releasing those things which are attached to you, that have their hooks in you. Finding the hooks and just simply removing them and saying, thank you, I don't need that anymore. And I'm choosing to release it. And that's where the power of forgiveness comes in. I mean, all of the things that you've mentioned, they're all so very, very important. So anyway, what do you say more about release and why that's so important?
Oh yeah, so you can hit that on a bunch of different levels. I've got 3 different angles I can come in on that one, and I'll start with why we hang on. One reason we hang on, it's about the story, and the nervous system and the brain love repetition. It's a fundamental element of the brain, this repetition. So what we're repeating in our life, we get this neurons in the brain band together, wire together, and neurons that fire together, wire together, fire together, and the more you reference that network that you've developed, the stronger it gets and the faster it fires. That's the nature of repetition in the brain. So now we've got a pattern. And it may be unconscious. It may be something that, like for me, like I developed certain behaviors, certain stress pattern behaviors that I'm still unwrapping, and I've been free of chronic pain for 12 years. I'm still I cleared the chronic pain, but the stress habit that was underneath it, that's been the work.
Right.
And so that's kind
the
of
repetition part that you're talking about.
That's the thing. Oh man, that pathway is so it's
well, I refer to this as ruts in the road. That's just about exactly what it's like if you want to draw a parallel into the physical world. I mean, if you're driving on a dirt road that has ruts in it, just try and make a left or right turn off that road. Exactly. It is really, really hard. Those ruts are going to do everything they can to keep you pointing in that direction. Well, that's what you just described, this idea of firing together and wiring together. The more you do it, the stronger those pathways get, the neural pathways get. And so consequently, trying to change those pathways gets harder and harder and harder over time. Well, and that's why you're experiencing this 12-year process.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I like to, like I said, I like to relate things to science, and you just related to one very, very, in a very grounded way. And the physicists tell us that an object in motion stays in motion until acted on by an equal or opposite force. Yep. Yep. So what is a habit? It's an object in motion. All right. It has momentum, and it's going to stay doing what it does until it's acted on by an equal or opposite force.
By an external force, yep.
So ancestral clearing, meditation, breath work, all these very powerful things we do in the present moment help us change the momentum. We have to bring it in again and again. Anybody listening to this that's meditated, maybe it's an 11-minute meditation, and you get 3 minutes. For me, it'd be some days it's like I get 3 minutes in it and I'm like, I'm out of here. Like I'm done, because we got things to do, right?
Exactly.
But you stay. All right, you stay. Now, what just happened there? That's my old pattern coming up against my new trying something new. That object, I brought in an object that's changing the trajectory, and I've come up against my own resistance. And that moment where my old pattern says, hey, we got other things to do than this, right? It's like, I don't want to, it's like, right. We want to be what we were, right? Yep. Well, our power right in that moment is the power of choice. Mm-hmm. So in this moment, this choice, this that I'm making, this thing that I'm doing, am I going to evolve the system and do something new, start building a new pathway, or am I going to put the old highway under reconstruction? And we have agency. I can sometimes I'm like, I got no energy for evolution today, and I just go back into my old pattern. But right. That's not changing my habit. So when we do this work about releasing stuff, we're going to run into some resistance just because of the nature of the beast that we're working with, the nature of the nervous systems. Like, I like what I like what I'm already doing, and what you're going to come up to some resistance when you try and change. So that's why when we actually release stuff, sometimes we hear a great ripping sound.
Yeah, well, it's like the anchor coming out of the earth.
Yeah,
that's right. This is really, really important too, because one of the things that I like to remind people of is, okay, if you're stuck in a pattern, the first thing you have to do is become aware of the pattern. Awareness is always the first step. And you can't become aware if you allow yourself to just, automatically in autopilot mode, follow what the pattern is doing, So, and the other thing that we talk about, you talk about the work. Well, there is work involved. There is effort involved. You have to, because you're applying this force in a direction that's new to the pattern. Mm-hmm. But if you can think of it not as work, and more as an adventure in creation. Something like that. You're creating something new, and yes, you're gonna bump into little, resistance and walls and stuff. You're gonna bump into obstacles, and you're gonna have this frustration build up because you're saying, I can't get through this, I can't get through that, I don't want to do it anymore, blah, 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 blah. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Because the truth is, if you think about obstacles, they're just things that show up in life. And if you want to continue on whatever it is you were aiming for, then you got to find your way over it, around it, under it, or through it. That's kind of what you have to do. Now, you may say, but it's too hard. Oh, bullshit. Take a look at your life. Take a look at where you are right now, today in your life. And just take a moment to look back on the path you have followed. And take a peek on some of the places on that path where you encountered obstacles. If you hadn't found your way around, over, under, or through those obstacles, you wouldn't be here right now. So, my friend, you have a 100% success rate. So now you can feel more enthusiastic about facing this obstacle that's in you right now and say, okay, yeah, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create new pathways. I'm trying to create new ways of being. I'm trying to release things. And this is the resistance that's showing up. Thank you for bringing it to my awareness. Now let's find a way around it, over it, through it, or under it. And and just ask for it. Because as Elizabeth already mentioned, when you open yourself up and ask, it just magically appears. The answer's already on its way.
Yeah, for sure. We if I have a thing with my mom, which I think my mom is my greatest teacher, by the way. I think my mom has been my greatest teacher in my life, besides my son. But I'm just saying, like, we have our family members can be our biggest challenges, certainly in my life. And I don't know how to release the stuff I carry around my mom. Well, I can ask for help. I can ask Creator, please. I see that I need some help here. Would you please help me release the part of this that no longer serves me? Because there might be some part of it that does. I'm just saying, and I get help there. I'll give you an example of, because in the ancestral clearing piece, and really, I think, David, you would agree, just generally in this work, the spiritual work, our free will is honored. So we're not asking Creator to, in this practice, we're not asking Creator to take anything from us. Right. We're not doing that. We're asking it to help us release that which no longer serves us, and it honors our free will. And that's significant. And I'll give you an example of how.
Yeah, there's another thing too that I think is really important is when you ask for help, you have to be open to the fact that the help may show up in a way you didn't expect.
That's right.
I'm reminded of the story of the man who was drowning in the ocean. And he starts praying for salvation, and a fishing boat shows up, and he says, no, don't worry, the Lord's going to save me. And then the fishing boat goes away. And then a helicopter comes by and says, no, don't worry, the Lord's going to save me. Well, this goes on for a while, and eventually he drowns. And so he ends up at St. Peter's gate, and he says, why didn't you save me? I asked like so many times. He says, and you passed on every opportunity that I sent you. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
Like you say, I honor your free will.
Yeah. Well, and
that's really, really important for people to understand. You never know how the help is going to arrive. And it may not arrive in a way that pleases you. I can't think of how many times I've had to endure, you know, the 2x4 across the side of the head to remind me to wake up. I mean, it wasn't a literal 2x4, but some kind of an experience that happened because I wasn't paying attention to the lesser experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Very important.
You make another point there that is something that has been very profound for me. So, Creator created everything. It's infinite. So infinite means it's infinite
Unbounded.
and yeah. So infinite and eternal. So unbounded and beyond space and time, eternal beyond space and time. So this is a very big. So the problem that I have, and I'm not the only one, but I'm just sharing my own experience, is that I have this tendency to, because you brought it in, expect that it's going to show up this way. and just by that expectation, I have limited the infinite. You know, and that's the mind. That's
I love that you just put it that way. That is beautiful. Oh, I love it. Expectations reduce the power of the infinite. Oh, I love it. That's beautiful.
Well, it doesn't reduce the power of the infinite. It reduces our access to the power of the infinite, right?
Yeah. Right.
So
words are important.
Yeah. So that's really these things that we're talking about here are really powerful nuggets, teachings within the work that help. It's kind of part of the dynamics of being able to move through the work. And so when I come into an ancestral clearing, and I love this about ancestral clearing, no session is the same. They're all different. I never know who's going to bring what, and it doesn't matter what they bring. Creator handles it all, you know. And I'll tell you, David, you'll appreciate this as a practitioner. Client comes in and they've got like subject, you know, XYZ, and I've never even like heard of a subject XYZ, and they want to work on it, and I'm like, I don't even know what to do with it. It doesn't matter, because it's creator. It's them and the creator that are doing the thing. All I have to do is work the process. So I get out of the way, and as soon as, and in this work, and we take that very seriously, because as soon as I think I'm doing the work, now I'm taking on their burden.
Exactly.
So this is and I would not be able to do this work if I didn't have a regular meditation practice, if that makes sense. I think you probably would agree with that. It's really important to help us stay kind of blank and in the present, and all the things that the meditation does for us.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, no matter how much work I do on myself, when I'm supporting another person, sometimes that other person's energy can leak out and get stuck on me, and I may not know it right away because I'm focusing on their issue. And I may have to do my own like spiritual smudging or something after the fact to make sure that I release all that energy so it doesn't have a negative impact on my life. It's really important. You're absolutely right. You know, I call it spiritual cleanliness. It's very, very important, and we all need to do it as practitioners in order to be of benefit to the next client who comes along.
Yeah, we can talk about that in terms of physics again, quantum physics, which is we're all entangled. And so we're all...
Well, how could it not be? Because we're all one. We're all made of the same energy.
Yeah, we're all in the field. So what we're, you know, we're in... You know, it's kind of interesting. I took Dr. Gabor Mate's compassionate inquiry training for a year. He has this beautiful program that he does. It's quite intensive. And, you know, it's not really, compassionate inquiry isn't really a therapeutic method. It's an approach. And I'm not a therapist, but I took it because I'm a coach, and it's anyway. So what was interesting about that process was that in a regular therapeutic setting, the ethics are, if you're having an interchange with your client, you don't disclose if you get a charge. If stuff comes up, you don't disclose that. In compassionate inquiry, we do. Now we're taught kind of how to do it in a very generative way. So there's not about us, it's about the session and them, right? But we disclose that. Why? You said it before. As practitioners, we're creating a safe space. And as soon as I start hiding my stuff, the other client may not be able to cognize it in the mind, but energetically they know. And now you don't have that safe space anymore. So, there's a lot of nuance and a little bit of art to this work that we do.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, you mentioned a few minutes ago that you think your mother might be your biggest or best teacher. I don't remember the word you used exactly. Yeah. And I think that what that really refers to, or it highlights for me, is this whole idea that even though we're doing this work and we're doing some release and all the rest of this stuff, there are gifts that we may not even realize that we have that are somehow tied to our lineage. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and how we can get access to those gifts?
Oh, wow, that's great. Yeah, so we all have resilience. We wouldn't be here. You know, think about all the generations, trials and error over and over and over again, and finally came to us. We're at the pinnacle here in the present moment. It's up to us now in the lineage. So there's obvious resilience. There's of course immune stuff. I came in with the frequency of gratitude because I didn't think that up. I remember I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional environment, and so I was in trouble all the time, and it was freaking scary. And what was interesting was, because I'm telling you, I didn't think it up. What was interesting was it would hit the fan. I would be in the middle of all of it, and I would go, oh, I have a roof over my head. Mm-hmm. You know, I have a warm, dry bed to sleep in at night. And I would go through this list, right, of like all the things to be grateful for in the middle of all the, that was going on.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
That was not something I liked, because I had that. I remember, as soon as I could even put words like that together, it was there. So that's a beautiful gift from lineage. That's another one.
Right.
Also, like, think about this in terms of actual science. When our grandmother is 4 months pregnant with our mother, all the eggs that our mother's going to have are developed. So the egg that is me or you shared space for 5 months in your grandmother. That's interesting. So you're sharing energetic, biologic and energetic space with 2 generations.
I never thought of it that way. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So that's profound, right? I'm going to take you one step further. Our grandmother spent time in her grandmother, and her grandmother spent time in her grandmother, and now we're talking about holding the energetic frequency of the whole lineage of mothers.
Right.
Holy cow. Look at all the wisdom, yes, the burden, but look at all the wisdom's flowing through the line. So,
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So people say, well, like, how can I get in touch with that? And my answer to that is, take a look at your life and look at your strengths. Mm-hmm. Where do you think they came from? Unless you completely made them up, they probably came in with you. Right?
That's right.
So and I could talk about that on a bigger level, but I think I'm going to stay right here with that. So I have a biology background, evolutionary biology, and I get into these discussions, and I start thinking in terms of evolution and the pulse of life and the information. Just like we could go on, right? But we carry the wisdom of all of it.
Right. And I think that, how do I get in touch with it? That's a great question. Well, one way I think you can get in touch with it is to meditate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Take yourself into like a visual space of some kind, and imagine yourself in your mother's womb. And then imagine your mother in her mother's womb, and just imagine that long line of mothers, each one in the previous mother's womb. What you're doing is you're creating that a visual representation of that lineage, and it can go back as far as you want. Back to the very first mother, whoever that might have been.
That's right.
And if you do that, then you can begin to maybe even connect on a spiritual level to each of those mothers and find out what was the specific gift that mother brought into the world. Right?
Yeah.
And while we're talking about mothers, I think we got to remember that men are born too. They just don't continue the lineage in the same way. They continue the lineage in a slightly different way. But every man must have been in the womb at some point. So you can imagine yourself, even as a man, you can imagine being in your mother's womb, in your grandmother, and so forth. So it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. You can do this meditation for yourself and imagine the gifts that came to you from that full lineage.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. I'm working on a book with my brother. It's half history and of the family and of one side of the family, and mostly recipes. But it's the recipes, but the history that around them, and because we have records that go back 12 generations.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. So it's pretty epic, right? So we were doing a lot of and there's not just records, but like a lot of records, and it's just a thing. And so I was sitting. We had a question about my great uncle. My great uncle. I think it was my great uncle. And we couldn't find the research. We couldn't find the actual records at that point. We did later, but at that time in the work. And I sat down, David, in the meditation, and I imagined, this is kind of another way of doing it. I imagine myself sitting on a grass by a pond, and the pond is still as stone, just smooth as glass. And on the ground next to me is a stone. I pick up the stone, which is my intention or my question. And in this case, it was like, could you connect me to my great uncle?
Right? Oh, beautiful. I love it.
And I took the stone. You take the stone in the mind and you throw it into the middle of the pond, yep. Let it, watch it, right? And you just get still and you just go blank, which is, again, right. Meditation will help us do that. So you just go blank. And lo and behold, I'm telling you, I saw my uncle. He was eating oysters one evening, and he got deathly ill from that and died. Oh. And that was like, I mean, it was quite. It was quite profound because I didn't know it was coming. When you ask, you get. I didn't know it was coming. I didn't have limitations. I just like, what's happening here, right? And
right.
And it turns out that was, our waters. We didn't have good hygiene back like we do today, and he got I think that was like typhoid fever. from that.
Sure.
And anyway, we finally found the records, and that's exactly what happened.
That's amazing, isn't it?
So, like, you know, how does that work? So
yeah,
that's another.
Well, I know, and the scientific skeptics in the world would say, yeah, there's nothing woo-woo about that. You just heard about this before and put it back into your subconscious or some damn thing. That's what they're going to say, and that's what they do.
Okay.
And okay, fine. You can dismiss it that way if you want to, but you still can't explain why a certain person, for whatever reason, has something happen that keeps him from flying on an airplane that crashes.
Well, there you go.
You cannot explain that in scientific mumbo jumbo. I'm sorry. There are energetic forces at play that we don't all understand.
Yeah. Well, the thing about science is that it's operating in a framework that can only comment on that which it can observe, measure, and describe.
Of course.
But where do we live? We live in the all that is, not just in the part that we can observe, measure, and describe. So our healing, our healing hits in all those places. And just because, and I got trained up here at KU, which is they've got amazing. Their biology department is incredible for training scientists. And don't you think they didn't put me through my through it, right? To like, you gotta, this is how you do this, and you can't say that because of this, and all the things, right? To stay in the framework, right? And also understand that just because this is where we are, this is how we see it today, doesn't mean it's how we're going to see it tomorrow. So it's this beautiful moving model, but we have to understand the limitation we're working when we're working in science. Yeah.
Right. And, science is great for what it does. I mean, I'm not trying to denigrate science at all. Science is wonderful. But you're right. Even people who are doing research on consciousness and, maybe paranormal type studies and that sort of thing, they have a very difficult time because some of the things, like you say, they want to observe and measure, they don't have the tools or the capability of doing that yet. And so they have to come up with different techniques to try and observe side effects rather than the effect itself. Yeah. And that's one of the problems with quantum physics as well. We talk about all these subatomic particles, but no one's ever seen a subatomic particle. All we've ever seen are the effects of something that we label a subatomic particle.
Yeah, the inference. Yeah.
That's right. We make it. We draw a conclusion based on some behavioral thing that we were able to observe by taking. I don't know. We see something happen in a gas or something, and we happen to catch a video or a snapshot of that. And so we observe that and say, oh, well, what could have caused these particles to move this way? And oh, well, it must have been a tachyon or whatever, So I think it's fascinating. I love science. I think it's great, but I think we put way too much stock in it sometimes. So I'm just trying to say, there are more things that cannot be explained by science than even the infinite number of things that can be explained by science.
Yeah. So I'd like to just take the conversation in a slightly different direction before we close up here. Okay. And because we can get, I did kind of an exercise the summer of 2018 that was very helpful for me. So the story of my family, that burden that I talked about, really had a deep impression on me, and I allowed it to color my experience and my life in many ways. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that we can really release the effects of all that, because I don't think that's accurate. But there's a lot to be said for accessing the present moment and that blank slate that we talked about. At least imagining this moment is a new moment. Every moment's a new moment, that concept. So in the summer of 2018, I sat with this question. Who would I be without the story of my family? And that was very liberating, just to ask the question, right? And understanding we're sitting in a field of potentiality, and so all possibilities exist in this moment, allowed me to kind of evolve out of suffering that I had, because the history of my family's, I mean, we did some great things, but oh my God, there were other things in there. There's like, what am I doing in this family? Like kind of thing. So it's very helpful, I feel, when we're doing ancestral work, to be able to look at the other side of the coin, which is like, yes, I have this influence of my ancestors and all my relationships, and I am me in the present moment, in the field of potentiality, in the collective, right? And I have some free choice. I have some free will. It's just, I just wanted to bring that in as like another
No, I
aspect.
think that's beautiful, and it's important. What would I be without the story of my family? You know, when you asked the question, I immediately had an image of George Bailey pop into my head. Now, for those who don't know who George Bailey is, George Bailey was the main character of the movie It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
And it's definitely one of my like absolute, like near the very, very, very top of all my list of movies. And I watch it. I love watching it every year. It's kind of campy, but it is really, it's a beautiful story because it talks about, you don't know the influence you have and the impact you have on other people unless you take that story away. And so the answer that was coming to me was, well, without that story, I may not have had this happen. I may not have had this happen. I may not have had that happen. So I might not have learned this skill as a result. So yeah, I think it's a beautiful question to ask. And it's very much reminiscent of the kind of work that Byron Katie does. Her work on, you know, she calls it the work.
The work, yep.
And in fact, you know, she talks about your belief. How can you know that this to be true, or can you know it to be absolutely true? And what would you be without that belief? It's that very, very same kind of question. Powerful, powerful stuff. If you give yourself permission to answer truthfully, you know. So yeah, I love it. Now this brings up yet another point, which I think is important also. You know, we've been talking about all kinds of things here. I think ultimately the main topic is embodied presence. That's what we're talking about here. But also from that place of embodied presence, tapping into our innate creativity and bringing forth beautiful expressions of who we really are in some kind of creative way. What do you do to encourage people to become more creative and to bring more of their essence into the world?
Yeah, I love that question. I really help them learn how to leverage the power of the breath, conscious breathing, directed, very focused, directed breath work, because that really helps us be present. And at the same time, it helps us release stuck energy in the body. So that's kind of cool. And remember, I said I'm still unwinding an old stress habit, and a stress habit kind of looks like this. I've got one foot in the past. I've got half a foot in the present, and I've got half a foot in the future. So I'm only a little bit here. So my work is like, okay, how can I expand my presence, right? And so what's been interesting about that is, one, I have people that say, oh, you know, I get bored And I'm like, aha, boredom is a gateway. Sit with it. Because if you can sit with that resistance that the mind and the body come in, the nervous system, like, I need something different here, right? That resistance we were talking, if you can sit with that and breathe through it, you'll find the present moment opens into this rich landscape you never even knew was there, because you had one foot in the past, half a foot in the present, and half a foot in the future.
Right.
And when I was able to do that, all of a sudden I became a freaking poet.
Oh, yeah.
like these words started dropping in front of my face, right in the present moment, and I started just, writing them down as they came in. And, after 20 minutes, I've got this thing that was like, holy cow, this is amazing. It's like divine channeling thing, which I didn't set up. It came in. So that's an example.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you have a sample of that poetry that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, my goodness. I do. Let me.
Right by your hand. All right.
I do. One moment. Just one moment.
I love it. Poetry is a powerful, powerful tool. And I believe that we're all poets. And well, Elizabeth and I were actually co-authors in a couple of volumes of the book, 100 Poems and Possibilities for Healing. And you're drawing from that book. Excellent.
Yeah, I'm going to
perfect. And that's volume 3 that was just published.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's an example. It's called Lighthouse, 0 point of infinite return. You're a wild, holy rhapsody of brilliance. Shame on the brain will whip up shade faster than a tornado in Kansas. It'll send you scrambling for cover, ducking your own brilliance, forgetting you were born lit. Here's the thing. You're not a paper lantern swaying on someone else's porch. You're the damn lighthouse, built to stand in storms, built to beam, built to call the lost home. Self-love isn't a whisper. It's the infinite return. It's looking in the mirror and being struck with awe at the truth of your magnificence. It's looking shame dead in the eye and saying, I see your pain. Come climb into my heart and be healed for once and for all. It's refusing to shrink just because your shine makes someone squint. It's knowing you're not a sum of your mistakes, but the wild, holy rhapsody coursing through you. Unconditional means no deal making, not when you're better, not when you've earned it, not when you get there, whatever that might be. It means loving the salt in your tears, the cracks in your voice, the faltering parts, just learning the way. The lighthouse, penetrating the deepest night, smothered in the darkest cloak. You're the damn lighthouse. Let the waves crash. Let the sky split open. Stay lit. Because when you love yourself without conditions, you're not surviving the storm. You are the weather. The eternal beacon burning, the 0 point of infinite return.
Wow. That's beautiful. Wow, that's beautiful. I love it. The lighthouse. Thank you so much for sharing that, because some people, I guess they get a little bit sensitive about sharing their poetry. And I think it's beautiful that you're willing to do that. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. That's everybody can do this. I don't always have that available to me. It's kind of interesting. There are times when, like, I got nothing. And that's okay. And there's other
That's right.
times where like I can't keep track of it all, right? And that's
Exactly.
okay too. So it's
Yep.
like, you know, we're evolving. It's life in motion.
Well, and
it's
you
all
know, yeah, I call it presence in motion, or
beautiful.
presence in action, whichever you like. Flow is what it is. And that's, you know, flow implies that you're making a movement from here to there. But really, if you can just be present to how it's flowing and to what's going on. And sometimes, like you say, I got nothing. Well, maybe that's because the flow has settled for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens, right? It's gone to that mirror lake that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But everything is still happening. Everything is always happening simultaneously, all at once. I mean, there really is no past or future. Everything is all right now.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Elizabeth, this has been a great conversation again. Thank you so much. I want, you know, it's just been beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me. Do you have any final words you'd like to share? I mean, that poem really was beautiful. But if you have any final words before I close us out?
Well, I feel like we have the gifts and the burdens of our ancestors. And the idea is to find ways to release that which no longer serves you so that you can evolve, not just yourself, but you're evolving the whole lineage.
Right.
So, you know, kind of understanding that responsibility, right? That you've got, you came in with all this stuff, and it's kind of up to you to decide where it's going to go next. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Oh, well, friends, I want to say it's been an amazing conversation. I want to thank you for being here and watching the recording or being here live, as the case may be. I'd like to remind you that this show and all my other episodes are available on my website at yourlifemasterycoach.com. So please head over there and check them out. And before we close out, I just want to remind you of my Life Mastery mantra, 3 lines, easy to remember. And I encourage you to practice this on a regular basis. It's something that you can do, and it just helps you to grow and expand and love yourself more thoroughly. It's simple. It goes like this. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So thank you again for joining me. I wish you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey, and I will see you next time on MagnifEssence in Motion. Bye-bye for now.